I 100% support the public-private partnership in its current form. And, even before the dust-up about it occurred, I had posted on my website and said in media reports that on my first day in the office, before my name is even on the door, I'd signed the public-private partnership cooperative endeavor agreement. And so I don't think that tweaks are necessary. And I'd offer two critiques. Mayor Nagin talked about the lack of diversity when it comes to the public-private partnership. Well, the fact is he appoints two of the positions. And so he can ensure diversity simply by moving it forward and making his appointments. And the other is that I think it's unfortunate that some folks have used the public-private partnership as a way to cause racial divisiveness within the mayor's race. The fact is that it is a great economic driver. It's an opportunity to ensure great job opportunities in every community in New Orleans. So I have a few thoughts. The first is, of course, I support being strong when it comes to DBEs, and it's been unfortunate that the current mayor hasn't enforced the rules around DBEs. It really is one of the main arguments against any racial divisiveness in this mayor's race. Because you hear people argue, well, it's a black city, you have to have a black mayor. But we had a black mayor, and that didn't ensure that black businesses got any business, right? So I think that people aren't looking for a black mayor or a white mayor. They're looking for the right person, the best person to do the job. So I think that people agree that having a DBE process that's effective, that ensures that the majority of that a large portion of contracts go to minority-owned and women-owned businesses is great. And I think another part of that is making sure that contracts go to locally owned businesses. So historically, the process that we've had just hasn't had any teeth. Oftentimes you hear criticism from the African American community about the Office of Inspector General, and they'll say that it is an attempt to keep African American businesses from getting contracts from City Hall. Well, that's not what's keeping African American businesses from getting contracts at City Hall. The Office of Inspector General is a great thing. What's keeping it from happening is the lack of any real enforcement in the DBE program. It's unlikely that we are going to attract or steal a Fortune 500 company. Instead, what happens is that most communities grow Fortune 500 companies. And the way that they do so is that they invest in their own people. They invest in their own companies, their own communities, and that's one of the great opportunities with the public-private partnership is that using the community development financial institution, using grants, using tax increment financing, all kinds of tools, we can ensure opportunities for local business people. The second thing, though, is that if we want businesses to come or we want businesses to stay, we have to make sure the city is safe. The second thing is making the process of doing business here objective. So it's one of the most important reasons that I support the master plan process, so that if a developer wants to build something or create something, they have a clear understanding of what they can expect for any particular plot of land in the city of New Orleans. Instead of having to kiss the ring of an elected official and contribute and have a good relationship with an elected official. Well, again, you got to make it safe. Very first thing. Second thing is that you have to make, particularly when it comes to retail, you have to make shopping easy for people. And so, for instance, the recent decision by City Hall to begin charging to park on Saturdays and Sundays was a huge mistake. The Economic Development Fund and all the other tools that we have don't have to be available exclusively to new business. The fact is that we have to make sure that we are making them available to existing business as well. The public-private partnership, one of the, again, best things about it is that it is existing business people who are on that committee, who will be part of that group. And so I think that they will have a very clear insight into what our local businesses need in order to sustain themselves. In the internet technology age, there would be an internet application that would allow you to do just about every kind of application that you need to do at home, in the comfort of your home or at your business. So the second part of technology there is that when you go to City Hall, if I'm there, there'll be an intranet application that's not that different from the application that you use online at home. And the City Hall employee that you're working with would use that application to fill out your permit or request your permit. There's this belief that you can't fire civil servants. Well, it's not that you can't, it's that you can't fire them without cause. The way that you develop cause is that you have to be able to prove that there was some task that an employee was supposed to do and that they didn't do that task. And with this software, we'll be able to see that if on average it takes 15 days for someone to get a permit, then it's taken this person on average 30 days to get people permits. And so then we can actually go in and either work with them and train them to get them up to speed, or take stronger actions and maybe even dismiss them because there may be something at the core that's wrong.
Is there money in the budget to do that?
So that's the last part of your question is how do you afford to do it? And so first of all, I think that there is the financing available to do it. And I think that the problem is that our budget priorities have been completely out of whack. I think it's important to look at New Orleans East historically, and New Orleans East was its most vibrant when the NASA plant there was at its strongest. And so we've turned to a number of things to try to make New Orleans East work. Retail, and that hasn't worked. We've turned to tourism through Six Flags and Jazzland, and that hasn't worked. But we saw industrial work well in the East through that NASA plant. So I think that industrial is the opportunity again for New Orleans East, and it's the way that we should focus our efforts. We can continue to do everything that we do to support the tourism industry, but at the same time really heavily support expansion of the Port of New Orleans and expand business that works based on the great tax credits that the state has passed in recent years. One of the key things when we're looking at the port is the fact that there was tons of infrastructure damage and devastation during Hurricane Katrina, and it hasn't been fully recovered. The port estimates that it needs more than $300 million in order to rebuild and move all of that infrastructure in order to really function at a top rate. And so I think that can happen. It can happen either through state financing, and if the state is unwilling to move forward, then I think we use city public financing in order to get it done. But that, again, doesn't affect or doesn't harm our ability to go out and attract more tourists and to grow our convention business. In addition to publishing who the contractor was and all the information about the process on the internet, we'd also publish the subcontractor information. We want to know who all the subcontractors were. One of the places that it's alleged that the majority of corruption and patronage happens is really through the subcontracting process, and so we make sure that all of that information is available. Credit is less available, but it's not completely unavailable. So it's just that people aren't able to get loans that are the same sizes that they were able to get a few years back. And so the issue becomes, how do you bridge the gap and make sure that there's enough capital available? And that's one of the reasons that I love the public-private partnership so much. Part of that entity will be a community development financial institution, which is essentially a nonprofit bank. That can make loans to businesses, and we can make those loans in a really flexible way with low interest rates that helps to bridge the gap and provide the capital needed in order to close on a project. Well, there's talk of a second stimulus package, and what you probably know is that through the first stimulus package, we've seen a good bit of infrastructure repair. And so there's a great opportunity for us to get a second chunk of stimulus money if Mr. Obama goes forward with the second package that would help us to do the initial reconstruction that we need to do on our streets. And so once that happens, it's up to us to do a good job of maintaining and making sure that the streets are in good condition. And what I estimate is that we need to dedicate about $20 to $25 million per year in order to maintain streets and make sure that they're in good shape. So again, that goes to the issue of prioritizing. What's happened in recent history is just that has not been a priority in our budgets. And so at the point that we're able to use federal funding in order to do the initial construction work, then it becomes much easier for us to prioritize simple maintenance. I don't recall the exact budget off the top of my head.